Here's a way to clean up your life. Stop doing the things that you know are wrong that you could stop doing. Right? So it's a fairly limited attempt. First of all, we're not going to say that you know what the good is or what the truth is in any ultimate sense. But we will presume that there are things that you're doing that for one reason or another you know are not in your best interests. There's something about them that you just know you should stop. They're kind of self-evident to you. Other things you're going to be doubtful about. You're not going to know which way is up and which way is down. But there are things that you're doing that you know you shouldn't do. Now, some of those you won't stop doing for whatever reason. You don't have the discipline, or maybe there's a secondary payoff, or you don't believe it's necessary, or it's too much of a sacrifice, or you're angry or resentful or afraid. Who knows? So forget about those for now. But there's another subset that you could stop doing. It might be a little thing. Well, that's fine. Stop doing it and see what happens. And what will happen is your vision will clear a little bit. And then something else will pop up in your field of apprehension that you will also know you should stop doing, and that you could stop doing, because you've strengthened yourself a bit by stopping doing the particular stupid thing that you were doing before. That just puts you together a little bit more. And you could do that repeatedly for an indefinite period of time. And you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to ever be able to formulate a clear and final picture of what constitutes the truth and the good. But it does mean that you'll be able to continually move away from what's untruth and what's bad. And you know, that's not a bad start. What is it that you can do in order to aid the world, let's say, like you might if you were thinking about being an environmentalist? Well, as far as I can tell, the one sure route to aiding the world is to clean up your existential space.
Because other people aren't the problem. You're the problem. You can't change other people, but you can change yourself. But it's difficult. It takes courage to change, and it takes discipline. It's much easier and much more gratifying to your basest desires to blame someone else for your misery. Now, there are people who seem to be consigned to a terrible fate, but most of us aren't. Most of us have a chance to make our lives better. But how? Start small. Ask yourself a few questions. Have you taken full advantage of the opportunities offered to you? Are you working to your fullest capacity at school or at work? Have you, in other words, set your own house in order? If the answer is no, try this. Stop doing what you know to be wrong. Stop today. Don't waste time asking how you know that what you're doing is wrong. Inopportune questioning can confuse without enlightening and deflect you from action. You can know something is right or wrong without knowing why. Start paying attention. Do you procrastinate, show up late, spend money you don't have, and drink more than you should? It's not a matter of accepting some externally imposed morality. It's a dialogue with your own conscience. What are you doing that's wrong from your own perspective? What could you put right now? Get to work on time. Stop interrupting people. Make peace with your siblings and your parents. Diligently utilize everything you already have at hand. If you do those things, your life will improve. You'll become more peaceful, productive, and desirable. After some days or weeks or months of attentive effort, your mind will clear. Your life will become less tragic, and you'll become more confident. You'll start seeing right from wrong more clearly. The path in front of you will shine more brightly. You'll stop getting in your own way. Instead of bringing trouble to yourself, your family, and your society, you'll be a positive and reliable force. Your life will still be difficult. You'll still suffer. That's the price of being alive. But maybe you'll become strong enough to accept that burden, and in that fashion, even come to act nobly and with purpose. The proper way to fix the world isn't to fix the world. There's no reason to assume that you're even up to such a task, but you can fix yourself. You'll do no one any harm by doing so, and in that manner at least, you will make the world a better place. I think what you have to do, and this is part of humility, is you have to look around you within your sphere of influence, like the direct sphere of influence, and fix the things that announce themselves as in need of repair. And those are often small things, you know, and they can be like your room. Put it in order, because the thing is, it isn't exactly so important that your room is in order, although it is. What's important is that you learn how to distinguish between chaos and order, and to be able to act in a manner that produces order. And I think you can do something as simple as just sit on your bed and think, okay, there's probably like 5 things I could do today so that tomorrow morning is slightly better than this morning was, at least I'm not falling behind. And those will usually be, it's like having to eat a toad in the morning, right? It's like, it's not going to be something you want to do. There'll be things you're trying to avoid. They're snakes, essentially. But if you ask yourself, like you're asking someone, which I think is a form of prayer, if you ask yourself, instead of telling yourself, you know, what is it that I could do to set things more right today, that I would actually do? It's usually some small thing because you're not that disciplined, you know. Then you can go do it. And then you put the world together a little more when you do that. And that spreads out. But you also construct yourself into something that's better able to call order forth from chaos. Hey man, you're not aiming high enough, because if you were, it would be meaningful.
Yeah.
That's the, okay, so while the future authoring program says, like, look, the first thing you want to do is decide that you're responsible for taking care of yourself like you're someone hypothetically worthwhile. Okay, so that's the first thing. It's like the same, imagine you have a kid and you like the kid and you'd like things to go well for them. So you got to have that attitude towards yourself,
right,
despite all your flaws, which are manifold.
And that's hard for a lot of people to get to.
God, yes, and no wonder, because, you know, most of us are fixer-uppers and we need some work, and so it's not so easy to come up with the whole self-love, which is not something I'm not that comfortable with anyways. But the fact that you're not perfect doesn't mean that you aren't worth improving. That's the thing.
I love that.
So, okay, so then the next thing is, so get yourself in that state of mind. Just assume it. Maybe there's something in me worth redeeming. All right, next thing. Assume that if you aim at it, you might at least be able to get close to it.
Okay.
Right? Or that you'll aim at it and miss, but your aim will get better across time.
And you're taking a shot in the right direction.
Yes, that's exactly it. And you're starting to move in the right direction. And even if you haven't got your goals specified properly, as you move towards them, you get smarter and you'll be able to make better goals. So you're on the right track.
You're starting to calibrate.
You're starting to calibrate. Exactly what you're doing. You're starting to calibrate. That's exactly it. And then the next issue is, okay, now here's another hypothesis. If you aim at it, you might get it. But you're not going to get it if you don't aim at it.
Right.
You might not get it if you aim at it, but you might get it. So that's at least you're setting up the preconditions.
Right.
Next step. Imagine your life three to 5 years down the road, and you get to have what you need and want, assuming you're reasonable. Okay, so these are the things to consider. How would you like your family to be if it could be the way you wanted it to be? What are you going to do with your relationships with your siblings and your parents? What about your kids and your wife? Your intimate relationship? If you could have what you wanted, what it would look like, your career or your job, what's it going to be, and how are you going to conduct yourself in it? How are you going to educate yourself? Because you're not as smart as you could be. You need to know some more things. Because unless your life's perfect, you're too ignorant. That's basically the issue. How are you going to take care of yourself mentally and physically? How are you going to withstand the temptations of drugs and alcohol? What are you going to do outside of your work that's productive, engaging, and meaningful? Okay, so that's 7 things. It's just, even hypothetically, if you could have what you wanted, what would it look like? Okay, next thing. Write for 15 minutes about what your life could be like in 3 to 5 years if you had what you want, just so you know.
If you had what you want.
Yeah, if you had what you wanted, what would it be?
Right.
Like, and don't be ridiculous about it. It has to be. It has to be hypothetically within your. Well, that's it. You have a castle in the air. Well, except they won't stay in the air.
First of all, you're not telling anyone else what to do. That's a big plus. And second, well, the more you do that, the more you're going to be able to do things. You know, and so you might think, well, if you're going to clean up the world, you might start by cleaning up your phenomenological space and see how far you get with that. It's a very difficult thing to do, but if you do it, the better you get at it, the more capable you are of handling larger and larger problems, and that's how you should start. You should start with what's right in your grasp, and with what you can control. See what happens if you stop doing things you know to be inadequate and wrong. So the hypothesis is every time you engage in an activity like that, you weaken yourself. You put yourself down first, you remove your own self-confidence, but you also fail to take the opportunity to expand your domain of competence.